Picture this. You're enjoying a juicy steak, thinking you're fueling your body with protein. But what if that steak came from a cow with severe liver disease? This reality of what's on your fork is a lot more common than you may think and is happening to millions of Americans a year. Meet Sarah, a 55-year-old office manager who's been struggling with unexplained weight gain and chronic joint pain. She's sitting down to her usual dinner of steak and potatoes, unaware that her meal might be the source of her health issues. Sarah's not alone in this. What if I told you that the meat on your plate could be causing serious health problems? We're talking liver disease, joint pain, and nutrient deficiencies. In the next few minutes, we're going to uncover some shocking truths about the meat industry and how it's affecting your health. It could explain why Americans are getting sicker and sicker each year. Now let's take a closer look at where our meat actually comes from. Picture a vast warehouse crammed with thousands of animals. The air is thick with the smell of waste, and there's barely room to move. This isn't some dystopian nightmare. It's the reality of factory farming, where 90% of the world's meat is produced. These factory farms are a far cry from the idyllic pastures we might imagine. Instead of grazing on grass under open skies, animals are confined in cramped indoor facilities. This overcrowding isn't just uncomfortable, it's downright dangerous. With so many animals packed together, diseases can spread like wildfire. And because these animals often share nearly identical genes, when one gets sick, they all do. But it's not just the living conditions that are cause for concern. The diet these animals receive is equally troubling. Instead of their natural foods, they're fed a mix of genetically modified grains and low-quality feed. This isn't what their bodies are designed to digest, and it shows. Many of these animals develop serious health issues, including obesity and fatty liver disease. Take cows, for example. Their stomachs are meant to process grass, not corn. But in factory farms, they're often fed a corn-heavy diet that can wreak havoc on their digestive systems. This diet can raise the pH level in their stomachs, making them susceptible to a painful condition called acidosis. It's like forcing a vegetarian to live on nothing but fast food. Their body simply isn't equipped to handle it. But surely, you might think, sick animals don't end up in our food supply, right? Unfortunately, that's not the case. Many of these animals are slaughtered while suffering from organ failure, particularly in the liver. The meat industry often prioritizes production and cost over animal health. They're even known to use substances like ractopamine to boost growth, despite the fact it can cause suffering and health complications in animals. In 2011 alone, ractopamine was reported to have sickened or killed over 218,000 pigs. Now you might be wondering how this affects you. Well, remember the saying, "You are what you eat"? When we consume meat from unhealthy animals, we're not just eating protein, we're potentially ingesting a cocktail of health problems. The meat on our plates often comes from animals that were sick, stressed, and pumped full of substances that were never meant to be part of our diet. This raises serious questions about the quality and safety of the meat we're consuming. If an animal's liver was failing when it was slaughtered, what does that mean for the nutritional value of its meat? How might the stress hormones and unnatural substances in its body affect our own health when we eat it? The reality is, the steak on your plate might be far from the healthy protein source you imagined. It could be carrying the legacy of the animal's poor health and living conditions. And when we consume this meat regularly, we're potentially exposing ourselves to a host of health issues. You might think you're just eating a simple burger, but the reality is far more complex. That patty on your plate is likely part of a much larger problem: ultra-processed foods. These aren't just slightly altered ingredients. They're industrial creations that bear little resemblance to their original form. And they're not just unhealthy, they're deadly. Here's a sobering statistic. 678,000 Americans die each year from chronic illnesses linked to ultra-processed foods. That's more than the entire population of Seattle, wiped out annually by what we're putting on our plates. It's not just about calories or fat content anymore. We're dealing with a whole new level of food manipulation that our bodies simply weren't designed to handle. But don't just take my word for it. The National Institutes of Health decided to put ultra-processed foods to the test. They conducted a study where participants were given either a diet of ultra-processed foods or minimally processed foods. The results? Those on the ultra-processed diet consumed an extra 500 calories per day and gained weight rapidly. That's like eating an extra Big Mac every single day without even realizing it. Now you might be thinking, but I'm not eating junk food all the time. I'm having meat. That's natural, right? Well, not so fast. The meat industry has its own set of hidden ingredients that are cause for concern. One of the biggest issues is the use of antibiotics in factory farming. These aren't being used to treat sick animals. They're often given routinely to prevent disease in overcrowded conditions and to promote faster growth. It sounds efficient, but it's creating a ticking time bomb for public health. You see, when antibiotics are overused, bacteria evolve to resist them. This is creating superbugs, antibiotic-resistant pathogens that are incredibly difficult to treat. It's not just a problem for the animals, it's a problem for us too. These superbugs can make their way from farms to our plates and then into our bodies. The numbers are staggering. At least 700,000 people die each year from antibiotic-resistant infections. But it gets worse. Experts predict that if we don't change course, this number could skyrocket to 10 million by 2050. That's more than cancer kills today. But antibiotics aren't the only hidden ingredients in your meat. Remember those sick animals we talked about earlier? Well, their meat often comes with a cocktail of stress hormones, inflammatory compounds, and even residues from the drugs used to keep them alive in poor conditions. And let's not forget about the additives used in meat processing. Nitrates, artificial colors, and flavor enhancers are often added to make meat look fresher and taste better. Some of these additives have been linked to health issues ranging from headaches to cancer. Ever wonder why packaged meat stays red for so long? It's not natural freshness. The meat industry often uses gases to artificially enhance the color, making old meat look fresh. This practice isn't just deceptive. It could be masking meat that's well past its prime. We've seen how factory farming creates unhealthy environments for animals, but the rabbit hole goes even deeper. Let's talk about a practice that exemplifies the industry's prioritization of profit over animal welfare and human health: the use of ractopamine. Ractopamine is a drug fed to pigs, cattle, and turkeys to make them grow faster and produce leaner meat. Sounds great for efficiency, right? But here's the kicker. It's banned in 160 countries, including China and the entire European Union. Why? Because it's been linked to serious health issues in both animals and humans. The numbers are staggering. Since its introduction, ractopamine has been responsible for sickening or killing over 218,000 pigs. That's not a typo. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of animals suffering. But for the industry, it seems these losses are just a cost of doing business. Now, you might be thinking, surely this doesn't affect the meat I'm eating? Well, the FDA has found traces of ractopamine in American beef and pork. While they claim these levels are safe, the long-term effects of consuming meat from animals treated with this drug are still unknown. But ractopamine is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's talk about a condition called acidosis, which is alarmingly common in factory-farmed cattle. It's caused by feeding cows a diet they're not designed to eat, mainly corn and other grains instead of grass. This unnatural diet raises the pH in their rumens, leading to a host of health problems. We're talking diarrhea, ulcers, liver disease, and a weakened immune system. It's like forcing a vegetarian to live on nothing but fast food. Their body simply can't handle it. The consequences: many of these cattle are suffering from organ failure, particularly liver failure, at the time of slaughter. Yes, you heard that right. The animals that become your steak or burger might have been on the brink of death when they were killed. Now let's connect the dots. What happens when we consume meat from these sick animals? Remember Sarah, our office manager struggling with unexplained health issues? Her problems might not be so mysterious after all. When we eat meat from unhealthy animals, we're not just getting protein. We're potentially ingesting a cocktail of stress hormones, inflammatory compounds, and residues from the drugs used to keep these animals alive in poor conditions. It's like a game of toxic telephone, where the health problems of the animals are passed on to us. This could explain why so many people are dealing with chronic health issues despite thinking they're eating a healthy diet. The meat industry's practices are potentially linked to a range of problems in humans, from obesity and nutrient deficiencies to more serious conditions like liver disease and chronic inflammation. Think about it. If an animal's liver was failing when it was slaughtered, how nutritious can its meat really be? And what about all those stress hormones and unnatural substances in its body? When we eat this meat regularly, we're exposing ourselves to a host of potential health risks. After hearing about the dark side of factory farming, you might be feeling a bit hopeless about your food choices. But don't worry, there's a light at the end of this meaty tunnel. Let's talk about a revolutionary approach to farming: that's changing the game: regenerative agriculture. Regenerative agriculture isn't just a fancy buzzword. It's a set of farming practices that work with nature, not against it. Instead of depleting the soil and relying on harmful chemicals, regenerative farming focuses on building healthy soil, promoting biodiversity, and creating a sustainable ecosystem. But how does this translate to the meat on your plate? Well, animals raised on regenerative farms live in conditions that closely mimic their natural habitats. Cows graze on diverse pastures, pigs root in the dirt, and chickens peck at bugs and seeds. This not only makes for happier animals, but also results in healthier, more nutritious meat. Here's where it gets interesting. The nutrient density of food grown in healthy soil is significantly higher than that of conventionally farmed products. This means you're getting more bang for your buck in terms of vitamins, minerals, and other essential nutrients. Remember Sarah, our office manager struggling with unexplained health issues? Imagine if she switched to meat from regeneratively raised animals. She might find that her joint pain starts to ease, her energy levels increase, and those extra pounds begin to melt away. It's not magic. It's just good, clean food doing what it's supposed to do. But the benefits of regenerative agriculture go beyond personal health. These practices actually help sequester carbon from the atmosphere into the soil. That's right, your food choices could be helping to combat climate change. It's like eating your way to a healthier planet. One of the best ways to source regeneratively raised meat is to buy directly from local farmers. Farmers markets are a great place to start. Not only can you find high-quality meat, but you can also talk directly to the farmers about their practices. It's like getting a backstage pass to your food's origin story. If you can't make it to a farmer's market, don't worry. There are online resources that can help you find local farmers. Websites like eatwild.com and realmilk.com have directories of farmers who use sustainable practices. A quick search could connect you with a wealth of healthy food options right in your area. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't this going to cost me an arm and a leg? It's true that regeneratively raised meat often costs more upfront than conventional meat, but here's something to consider. By investing in higher quality food now, you might be saving yourself a fortune in medical bills down the road. As the saying goes, pay the farmer now or pay the doctor later. Plus, when you buy from local farmers, you're cutting out the middleman and supporting your local economy. It's a win-win situation. Better health for you, better livelihood for farmers, and a better environment for everyone. Now you know the real story behind factory-farmed meat and its impact on your health. As you sit down to your next meal, think about where that food came from and the journey it took to reach your plate. Your choices matter more than you might think. So what's it going to be? The same old story or a healthier, more sustainable future?